The crowd in the dusty frontier town went dead silent when the tall cowboy walked into the trading post. They'd seen men buy cattle, horses, even land, but what he signed for that day made every jaw drop. They said the deal was for one Apache bride, but when he rode out the next morning, 3 shadowy figures followed him, sisters bound by blood, vengeance, and a promise no man could break. What happened on that lonely ranch would soon shake the whole territory. The desert stretched endlessly beneath the burning Arizona sun, the horizon a blur of gold and rust. Eli Cooper rode through it with dust clinging to his hat and sweat running down his back. His horse snorted, tired from days of travel, but he pressed on. He'd lost half his ranch hands last winter to fever, and the flood in spring had taken the rest. If he didn't find help soon, his land, his father's land, would turn to nothing but dry weeds and ghosts. He wasn't a man who believed in miracles, but he was desperate enough to take whatever chance came his way. When he rode into Red Mesa, the town buzzed with life, cowboys shouting at the saloon, merchants arguing over prices, wagons creaking beneath the heat. Eli tied his horse outside the trading post and stepped in, brushing the dust off his jacket. The air inside was thick with tobacco smoke and the smell of old wood. Behind the counter, a wrinkled man with yellowed eyes and a sly grin looked up. "You the fella from Cedar Creek?" he asked. "That's me," Eli said. "Name's Cooper. Heard you might have workers available." The man leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Got something better than workers, son. Got a woman. Apache, young, strong, and willing. She'll work the fields, keep your house. All you gotta do is make it official. Marriage and papers signed proper." Eli's brows drew together. "Marriage?" "Only way it's legal," the man said, smirking. She agreed to it herself. "Says she'll only go if it's with a man who ain't cruel." Eli stared at the contract the man slid across the counter. His chest tightened. It didn't feel right, buying a bride like cattle. But the image of his empty home flashed through his mind, the cracked porch, the silent rooms, the graves by the oak tree where his wife and child rested. Maybe this wasn't about love. Maybe it was about survival, for both of them. He swallowed hard and signed his name. The man led him to a tent at the back of the post. The air inside was cool and still. Sitting cross-legged on the floor was a woman, her wrists free but her pride untamed. Her long black hair fell over her shoulders, and her dark eyes lifted to meet his without fear. For a long moment, neither spoke. "You're the one they're calling Tala?" he asked quietly. She gave a small nod. "You are the man who signed?" "I am," he said. "You come with me. I'll treat you fair." She didn't smile, but something softened in her gaze. "Then I will come." That night, as the wagon rattled out of Red Mesa, Eli rode ahead while Tala sat in the back beneath a blanket. The stars glimmered above, cold and endless. He felt uneasy, but told himself it would settle with time. Then, just as they crossed the shallow river, he heard a faint whisper behind him. 2 more voices, feminine, murmuring in a tongue he didn't understand. He turned and froze. 2 other women sat beside Tala, their faces half hidden in the moonlight, sisters by the look of them. Tala met his shocked gaze and said quietly, "You signed for one name, but you took all 3. We do not leave one behind." Eli stared at them, speechless as the realization hit him. He hadn't agreed to 1 wife. He'd agreed to 3. And somewhere deep inside, he knew his quiet ranch life had just become a storm, waiting to break. The morning after they crossed the river, the desert air was cool, laced with the smell of sagebrush and damp earth. Eli rose before dawn as he always did, feeding his horse and checking the trail ahead. The 3 women still slept in the wagon under a faded blanket, their faces half hidden by their long, dark hair. He watched them for a moment, unease curling in his chest like smoke. He hadn't meant to bring home 3 brides. Lord, he hadn't meant to bring home even 1, but here they were, quiet and calm, as if they belonged to the land itself. When Tala stirred, she sat up slowly, her eyes meeting his in the soft gray light. "We'll walk from here," she said, her voice even, carrying a quiet authority that didn't ask permission. Her two sisters followed her lead, climbing down from the wagon with silent grace. The youngest, no older than 16, looked around the open plains with wide eyes. The middle sister, strong-shouldered and serious, adjusted her braid and stood close to Tala like a shadow. Eli cleared his throat. "You all right riding the rest of the way? It's half a day to my ranch." "We walk," Tala said again, as though that ended the discussion. "We have walked farther for less." He nodded, unsure what else to say. As they traveled, the morning sun climbed higher, turning the sky from soft silver to burning gold. The sisters moved like wind over the sand, quiet, purposeful, always together. Every so often, Tala would glance back at Eli as if measuring him. By noon, they reached Cedar Creek, where the land spread wide and dry, broken by a few cottonwoods and the skeletons of what once were fences. His ranch sat in the distance, weather-beaten but standing, a lonely house framed by hills and open sky. Eli stopped his horse on the ridge and pointed. "That's home." Tala said nothing, but her younger sister whispered something in Apache that made the others smile faintly. It was the first time he'd seen warmth pass between them. When they arrived, Eli helped unload the wagon. He set down a crate of supplies, turned to Tala, and finally asked, "Do your sisters have names?" "Tiva," she said, nodding toward the middle one. "And Kaya." She looked him straight in the eyes. "We are three, but we are one family. You signed for me, but you took us all. Where one goes, the others follow." Her tone was calm but firm, the kind of voice that carried both warning and truth. Eli wanted to argue, to say he hadn't agreed to this, but something in her eyes silenced him. He simply nodded and said, "Then you'll have a place here, all of you." That night, as the sun sank behind the mountains, Eli sat alone on the porch, staring out at the horizon. Inside the small house, he could hear the quiet murmur of the sisters talking softly in their native tongue. Their words were gentle but full of something he couldn't name. Grief, maybe, or promise. For the first time in years, the house no longer felt empty. But deep down, Eli sensed something had shifted in the air, a current pulling him toward a future he didn't understand. These weren't ordinary women. They carried something with them, something ancient, fierce, and unbroken. And as night fell across the desert, he realized that whatever he had signed for in Red Mesa wasn't just a marriage contract. It was a destiny.